Thank you for your interest in the Retained Recruiter show powered by iIntro. Before the show starts, I have a small favour to ask of you. Our goal is to provide you with the most insightful, helpful and practical recruitment knowledge and know-how from the best in the recruitment industry. If you like this channel and enjoy watching our content, hit the subscribe button to get notified as soon as we upload a new episode. Thank you again, and as ever, we're rooting for your success. Now, time for the show.
Hello and welcome to the Retained Recruiter show. My name is James.
And my name is Jo. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. And we've got a great show lined up today, haven't we, James?
We sure have. I'm really looking forward. So get your pens and pencils ready, or your pens and paper, or your pencils and paper, whichever it is.
Or your iPads. And your,
oh, yeah, I forgot.
Your AI note takers.
All of that type of stuff. Hey, we're quite dark on this one. It seems quite dark, Jo, actually. Maybe it's because the sun's nearly setting in the UK now that winter is coming. There's another theme for another day. Yeah, exactly. So, Jo, what are we covering today for everybody? I think we've got
it's a hot topic. I think we've talked about this in a couple of different guises, and we always refer back to it. I think it's one of the absolute cornerstones of everything that we do. So today we're talking about how to stop competing on price and how to start winning on value. So some key things we're going to look at today. Firstly, why it's destructive to your recruitment business to compete on price. So firstly, we're going to talk about that. Secondly, we're then going to talk about, okay, so how do I actually stop fighting for space in the middle of the pack? And what is it that I can use if I'm not going to use cost as my differentiator? And then thirdly, we're then going to look at, okay, well, what is it that makes an employer pay a recruitment firm more than the market average?
Who wants to be average, hey?
Exactly. We're not here to be average. I quite like that phrase, though, when people say, oh, well, the standard rates or the average rates. It's like, okay, well, I'm not standard and I'm not average. But I think, James, the problem is, how do you make yourself not average, not look like everybody else in the pack,
I know. It is, when you talk, you just remind me, Jo, when you said about that standard and average, it is one of those things because, we run lots of training courses and training programs, Jo and I, and obviously one of the big things when we're talking as recruiters, I'll come back to the topic in a minute, but one thing we come to is people always want to know what your price is. And and it's when people say our normal fees. I mean, that just gets my back up, or our standard fees are. Nobody wants to know that. Our fees for this quality of service. That's what we're going to sort of talk about. So it's really important to choose your language, and I'm not just on about semantics here. I really am. You've got to be really careful about the language you choose, because it's the way that you say it and the way that you say it with confidence. But that's just another thing. You just popped into my head then when you said standard and average. So don't want to be that.
Yes, dangerous words to use. We want to kind of come away from using those words completely.
Yeah.
So first thing on the agenda, Mr. O'Brien, is why is it destructive to your recruitment business to compete on price? I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it, really? But I think yes, exactly. Don't. It's very dangerous. Stop doing it. Next.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it really. The thing is, Jo, again, one of the things, the questions we always ask people, and we're going to be talking a lot today about how you differentiate yourself. Yeah, and you've got to think about that particular part. And it's very, very difficult to differentiate yourself on price. You're either going to drop your prices so far that creates a clear blue day between you and the pack, which is not really what you want to do. And obviously, we're going to talk later about how you can get clients to pay you more, of course. But in terms of, if you're just going to compete on price, then you're circling the drain. You're just going to disappear down. It's just not a real thing because, now I think it's only fair to say, because there are going to be people listening and saying, yeah, but sometimes that is the only thing that because there are certain clients who only want to buy on price. Yeah. And one of the things we will say, Jo, when you've got clients like that, look in the mirror. Is it worth it to you? Now, it may well be. Yeah, and if competing on price is your thing, well, you're probably on the wrong webinar. You probably listened to the wrong show, because we're not looking about price. And price elasticity, how much people are prepared to pay, is something you need to stretch and test with your clients. And the reason why it always comes down to price is because there is no perception of value.
Yes,
yeah? I think that's one of those things we need to talk about a little bit, isn't it, Jo?
It is, absolutely. Yeah, value perception. Interestingly, I was having this exact same conversation with a client last week because we were talking about how do I, increase my fees? How do I move over to exclusive? How do we move over to a retained service? And we were talking about differentiating ourselves. And one of the things that they find in their market, because it is quite a saturated market, which I don't think is a bad thing, because if you've got lots of people all doing the same thing, you don't have to do much different in order to suddenly stand out from the pack. But it was a bit of a therapy session, really. They were sort of complaining that their clients tend to be quite cost focused. And the first thing out of their clients' mouths is, well, what fees do you charge? And I said, okay. I said, well, look at it this way. I said, if you went into a supermarket and you were going to go and buy bread, white sliced bread, and you walked over to the area where all that was, and all you could see was loaf upon loaf of white sliced bread. All the wrappers had been taken off. So it's naked white sliced bread all over the place. And it all looks identical. And you can't touch it, and you can't taste it, and you can't smell it, and you can't phone a friend, and you have to make a decision, but it all looks the same. However, underneath every loaf of bread, there is a price. Now, obviously, there's a lot of psychology between which one would you pick? Highest, cheapest, most expensive, somewhere in between. But that's not the point. The point is, if it all looks the same, but the only thing that's different is cost, what are you literally going to use to make your decision? And I should translate that back into the recruitment market. When we all look and sound the same, can you blame our clients really for getting fixated on cost and for wanting to know what the cost is? Because if that's the only thing that's going to differentiate us. So you're right. We need to stop looking identical to everybody else. We play a little game, don't we? When we do our training with our retained recruitment training, we play a little game with people, don't we, James?
We do, and we play with candidates as well. Don't forget in week 4.
Yeah.
But we do, and we ask people to sort of tell us, what is it that differentiates you? Yeah. Because most people that we talk to, they believe that they offer a premium service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us, what is it that you say is different? Joe, let's play a show. You say one, I'll say one. We'll do it 2 or 3 times.
Okay. Do I go first?
You're a recruiter. You go first.
Niche market. We're niche recruiters.
We're experienced. Lots of experience.
A massive database.
We compete on price.
We know your world.
We know your world, yeah. And we get about 10 or 12 different bubbles that pop up, and it's interesting because I was talking to Paul Hickey, the co-founder of iIntro. We must get him back on the show. Yes. I was talking to him, and he was telling somebody about when we started off with iIntro, or when he started off with iIntro, how he did draw. This would be almost, it sounds like the days before PowerPoint. Obviously, we do this a little bit more whiz bangy now, don't we? But he'd draw on a flip chart all those things, and flip it over 2 pages, and then he'd ask people, write them down. They said, listen, here's one I prepared earlier, and everybody sounds exactly the same. So if you sound exactly the same, what you've got to do is put together, you've got to understand that if you are going to offer a premium service, so what does it mean? And I think for people to understand, when I say to what is a premium service offering, to us, it's something that represents quantifiable, evidence-based value add, which employers cannot buy elsewhere. Yeah, so it's something that's unique or approaching unique, something that differentiates you. And when you get to that stage, that's when the client can see you different. Yeah. And I think you need to get to that point because, and again, we sort of joke here, but it's a serious point. When you go in and say, listen, I've got lots of experience in the market. I know all the candidates, I know the candidates you need before you need them. We've been around a long time. I've worked in the industry, et cetera, et cetera. I've got a massive database, then the reality is you say, okay, you said that, and I've got 15 years experience working in supply chain and this, that, and the other, and you leave the room. The next recruiter comes in. What do they say? Well, they've got 20 years experience or 10 years experience in supply chain, and they know all the candidates. So what's the poor client to do?
Yeah. And also, well, yeah, it is. It's all white sliced bread, unfortunately. Which again is then you end up with this problem where the client the only thing that is differentiating you is on cost. So that's where you do end up competing on price because you've got nothing to elevate yourself. So all those things that you just said then, they're all features as well, aren't they? If you put yourself in a client's shoes and you had someone saying those things to you, at some point to each of them, you go, so what? What's in it for me? What's in it for me as a client? How does that benefit me? So I think the first thing that recruitment businesses need to do that is not have unique selling points, have unique buying points. or at least key buying points, so KBPs.
Yeah,
So think about
KBPs, UBPs. I love that one, Joe. Let's get that one out there.
Yeah. So thinking about the buying points, why would a client buy from you? What benefits can you bring them? You know, I mean, we talk about benefits a lot. We talk about pivot points at iIntro because we can provide demonstrable value through the platform and through the ratios and things that we've got. But what does a database do for them? What is it that you do as part of the process that saves them time, that saves them money, that's less hassle and pressure? And then how can you evidence it? So how could you evidence that in your process? And start thinking about how it benefits the client, not what you do, but what it does for the clients. That's the first thing I'd say.
100%.
And again, you said about semantics earlier on. Some people might be sat there thinking, oh, that's just semantics. But it really isn't. It's thinking about things from the client's perspective rather than from our perspective.
Yeah, I think that's so true. That whole point there is, and it's selling 101, isn't it? Features, advantages, benefits. People who sell features don't sell, they tell.
Yes.
You've actually got to focus on the benefits. And what comes out, and this is where people get confused, the price that you then charge is just a reflection of the service that you offer. As soon as people understand, and you mentioned it, so let's go back to again, the WIFM, the what's in it for me. If you put yourself in the shoes of the client and just say to yourself, every time, and when you role play with your colleagues, just get them to say, so what? When you say something, so what? And Joe, you and I do this because we talk about our 96% success rate. 96% of the people that place using our methodology process are still in a job 12 months later. And when people say that to me in role plays, I always say, so what? Because it's not the 96%. 96% is the feature. The benefit is, and that's what you can explain. So that means, or what that means to you, is this. And this is, for example, in our case, when we talk about 96% success rate, which means that we're able to offer our clients an unparalleled 12-month free replacement. How does that sound to you? Or how does that compare with what you currently got? Well, that's different. So all of a sudden, 96% is the feature. The benefit is you're offering me 12 months free replacement. And we'll be talking about that because the so what, 96%, so what? Because that means nothing if they don't know what their statistic is. And if you've not gone through that particular part, then again, you can't do that. By the way, there was just a flash up on the screen a couple of minutes ago saying if you want to download something from us, our battle-tested Retained Road, I've forgotten the website. Was it www.retainedroadmap.com? Oh, thank you. There we go. This is like Blue Peter. So that comes up. Thank you, Tina, in the background, always doing a great job for us. So putting that there. So if you want to get a copy of that, this will talk about lots of the things that we're talking about. So I just think, remember, features, advantages, benefits, sales 101. You might think, gosh, I'm past that, but it's something that we often forget. And as I said, price then becomes secondary. It's just a reflection of the service. And if you don't believe me, just think about any time you bought a premium product. Why did you buy it? Because it reflected something that you wanted to own or participate in, and that makes you feel good. And again, what we've got to do with our recruitment service is we've got to make the client feel good about what it is that we offer. So if price is what you're offering, don't get me wrong. If price is your thing, don't worry. You will win work. Don't get me wrong, you will win work, but is it the type of work that you want? And obviously, we're trying to focus on how you can actually help charge more from that. So, I think that's a good little start to the show so far, Joe.
Yeah, well, I think we help people transition from contingent to retained. We help people transition from a transactional style of recruitment to a consultative style of recruitment. And actually, what we also help people to do is to transition from being quite a product-based business to a service-based business. And I do think that this is somewhere where people can maybe take a bit of inspiration from as well, is that a lot of the time when recruiters are competing on price, they are also, the client's normally looking at a CV at the same time. So they think they're paying for the CV. Whereas actually what you should be doing is providing a service of fully objective and scientific and nailed down service, which means that the net result is the right person in the business, not just a person in the business, but it's the right person in their business who's going to stay and be happy and enable the growth of that organization. And that becomes more of a service that you're providing that they're paying for, as opposed to just a candidate. So think about all the stages of the process that you have, write them all down. I think we don't blow our own trumpets enough in recruitment anyway. I know recruiters always really struggle if I said to them, all right, stand up and for 4 minutes tell me exactly what it is you do for a living and why it's of value to a client. They'd struggle after about 45 seconds. And that's not because they don't do anything, it's because they do. It's just we've never actually sat and written it down before. You know, I always say to people, if you want to charge 25%, think of 25 things you do for your money and then keep going. And I bet you'd be able to find them. So if you don't want to compete on price, you've got to compete on value. And part of that is creating a service, something that they could see, that you can then show to the client to prove, oh my goodness, look at all of that you do for your money. Because at the end of the day, James, if you do go up against 3 other recruiters, for example, and you tell your client what it is you do and how you do it, how it solves their problems. So in a minute, we'll talk about how do you stop fighting for space in the middle of the pack, and that's stop selling and start asking, because a lot of this is solution selling into problems. So we'll come on to that in a second. But if you do go up against 3 other agencies, you know, and you've told them everything that you do for your money, and then you tell them what the fee is, the client should think that's more than I'm paying now, but I can see why. That's all they've got to say. That's all their heads have got to say. Not that's expensive. If someone says that's expensive, that means they can't see the value in it. So your value proposition and your price point have to meet at the same place. So you have to work on really demonstrating your value to a client. And I think pretty much people will pay if they can see the direct value to them. So I don't think we need to think there's a ceiling on fees, do we? I think that's a bit of a convenient narrative that we give ourselves sometimes to not push for higher fees.
Yeah, and I think to be fair, also clients are quite switched on, so they push back and say we never pay more than 20%. Or 18% or 15% or whatever it is they want to say. And so I think that's when you come around and think about, well, if we're going to try and move away, and if we're going to try and shift the focus from competing on price to winning on value, then you've got to really understand your customer.
Mm-hmm.
You've actually got to put in place, first of all, understanding what is it that they do, how do they do it? Are they bargain basement? Remember, bargain basement clients want bargain basement deals, but not every one of your clients are going to be bargain basement. You'll be going to be dealing with some clients who deal in premium products. So, from that side of things, and think about what are they trying to do, and try and translate that to what you're trying to do. One of these events that we did, Joe, I'm not sure if there's a Retained Recruiter show or just a podcast webinar thing that I did. And I probably mentioned this before, but a guy called David Perry, who runs a search firm up in Canada called Perry Martell. And he also wrote Executive Recruiting for Dummies. That's a good starting place, isn't it? But one of the things he always spoke to me about is, when you're actually qualifying or fact finding on the client, that's where you're really starting to show your value, because you're acting as a consultant, you're asking searching and probing questions. And I don't just mean how much money you're looking to pay for this person, but you're trying to find out, and you're asking things like, what are the consequences if you making the right hire in this particular position? If you understand what their objectives are, if you hire this right person, how will it help you achieve those objectives? What's the impact of this going to be? And I remember David asking these questions, saying, this is what they do, and both the positives and negatives. What's the consequence of you achieving it? Good. What's the consequence of you not achieving it and not getting the right person? Bad. Okay. So later on, and this is all the fear that we have as recruiters. When you come to the price, if you're going to be nailed on price, and his little closing technique, people are always going to say to James, when they're always going to say to you, so come on, David, what's the price for this? And he said, I remember him saying, as clear as day, said, you know what, not nearly enough. Because based on what you've just told me, you want from this individual and what they're going to do for your business and your organization, the consequence of you getting it right far outweigh the consequence of you getting it wrong. And therefore, my fees are never enough. But for the record, my fees are 33% of the first year's annual salary package, and I take that in 3 equal installments. I hope that's okay with you. Nice little smile on his face. And obviously that's somebody who's been doing it a lot and actually got that experience. But what he's doing is he's building value into that particular proposition. And also, as I mentioned right at the start there, understanding his customers. And I think if you move then on through the process, Joe, differentiating your brand, if you like, in terms of people got to have this thing. We talk a lot about first impressions, and your brand is your first impression. I don't just mean your logo and what it looks like, but what it is that you stand for. Is there a congruence between what you say coming out of your mouth, what you say on things like your website or your Facebook or your Instagram or your LinkedIn, your social media footprint? How congruent is all that type of thing? Because that then builds out how you solve problems for your clients. I saw a little article the other day, and again, this is something that I know Finn Patrick talks about on his marketing workshops that we deliver. Does your website talk about me, and I? Or is it you, and your? in terms of getting that particular focus in there. So I think making sure that your brand message or your messaging is out there is really important as well. And then the next little point, I just want to sort of drop in whilst I think about it. It happens when you get older, Joe. You think, I better get it out quickly because I'll forget it in a second. Like
you need one of these you mentioned earlier on. You need one of these.
Oh yeah, I do have one with me.
Buy them to harness those idea balloons.
I've got my little, yeah, but we're very much in the market which is quality over quantity, and again, I know it's not everyone's so there are people out there, the volume recruiters, and we're obviously elevating ourselves up a bit more than that. It's the quality of the work that we do, and again, this always all helping sort of move you away from the middle of the pack. You don't just want to be one of the also rans, you want to be the front, you want to be the person at the lead, sort of taking the lead and showing that quality that you drive into the process. So it's not about how much we can sell, how cheap we can sell, how high we can pile it. It's about the quality of the service that we bring into that one. I think that's really important for us as well, for people to focus on that quality message, in terms of, because people buy quality. And I say, if you don't believe me, have a look around. What are you driving? What are you wearing? What are you eating? Is it always the lowest price thing? And the answer is always, absolutely not, unless you're going to buy some white bread and it's all the same. In which case, of course, you buy the cheapest.
Well, yeah, exactly, because there's nothing else to make a decision based on, is it really? I like what you said earlier on, the emphasis being on placing the right person with you, rather than just a person, which is what most other recruiters will focus on. So I think your messaging is really key. I think you need to as a business, you need to come up with some real benefits. So what are the benefits that we drive for our clients? And then where do we need to put those benefits? And then what marketing collateral do I need to create out of that? And then where do I put it? So where are my shop windows? What marketing collateral do I need so I can start to get that messaging out? So when somebody does receive an email from you, or a LinkedIn message, or happens upon your website or your LinkedIn page, and they're reading through it, it actually does look different. It's not just saying the same thing as everybody else. It's based on, exactly like you said, it's based on you, Mr. Client, the benefits that we drive for you through our process and our service methodology. Our value proposition is this, and this is how it benefits you. So automatically it starts to look different. I do think a lot of recruiters, when we do this sort of thing, there's obviously insert a small lead here, but we train a lot of recruiters, don't we, within recruitment businesses who join iIntro, who are maybe struggling themselves, wrangling with what makes them different, and how do I stand out from the pack? So I think that training is really important. So you need a value proposition, a service methodology, a good marketing toolkit to get that out, know where your shop windows are, and then train your team. Because there's a bit of a change of identity here as well, isn't there, James? And I don't think you can just go out and start saying, oh, we're different, if you don't truly believe that you are. So your identity, what is it that you're doing? Are you filling jobs? Are you sending CVs to clients? Or are you enabling the growth of their business through the recruitment and retention of the right people, working with them as a business partner, working alongside them as a true management consultant who was drafted in, not just to put people in jobs, but to streamline recruitment process, make it more effective, improve it. And I know some recruiters, it's that's quite a lot for them, but there's absolutely two ends of the coin. And I think identity sits around that a lot.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I think that as I said, that you're moving, you're changing the way you look at it. And you've got to have the right mindset to see it in that particular way. And I think this is the point, and it's sometimes one of the messages we try and get across when we're coaching people, to say, what are you? Are you a recruiter or a consultant? And so, what do you mean? I'm a recruiter. Okay, well, let's define recruiter. So I'm going to put a definition out, and again, it might cause a little bit of blowback, but that's the way it is. But we try and break this down, that recruiters work in contingent. Recruiters are contingent. That's just the definition we're going to give this. And again, I might be sort of playing with a little bit with words here, but and when you're a recruiter, your job is to place candidates. Mm-hmm. That's your job. It's to place candidates. It's not to fill jobs. It's to place candidates, because you don't care which job they get. You just want to place them, as many candidates as you can place, and you'll run as fast as you can. So when you've got a great candidate, you don't send them to one company. You send them to 10 companies. yeah, or similar companies, because you need to spread your risk. And we all get excited, you get a great candidate, and we're all into candidate marketing as well. Yeah, we have a process for that called Talent Alert Pro. Go and look it up, talentalertpro.com. In terms of to help you doing that, and we, there's a role in the marketplace for that. But as a recruiter, your job is to place candidates. When you're a consultant working with an organization, your job is to fix the problem they've created, that's been created. This gap in the organization. They need to fill this, be it a strategic hire or a mid-strategic hire, in terms to fill it through. And your role is to help fill that job. Yeah, and people heard that. What's the difference? No. One is placing candidates, one is filling the job. So when a client retains you, they're contracting with you to complete that task. And that task is to put that person in role. So you'd never dream as a retained consultant of having you've got a great candidate, think, you know what, I'll send it to 3 other companies just on the off chance. You just never do that. So it's a different mindset. And it's also on the messages, in the educational messages, you need to get across to organizations so they understand what they're doing when they're not engaging a retained recruiter to deliver this strategic hire. They're just saying, I've got no commitment to that company and it's free. I've got 3 recruiters, or even if I've only got 1 recruiter, but that recruiter is then spreading their risk with their candidates, because they're a recruiter and their job is to place candidates, not to fill roles. And again, that might create a little bit of debate. Anyway, let's get back to our agenda, Jo.
Well, I don't know if it does. I mean, we talk a lot about trying to get away from this kind of CV vending machine idea, and there's a lot of things that have stated that they were going to be the death of recruiters over the years, job boards and LinkedIn and AI and everything now. But I think once you put all those things together, the identification of people is now something that can be done by machines. I mean, it's F5, I think, as well, on your keyboard. It's not difficult to find people. But what it is, but that doesn't solve the problem. The problem is most businesses have problems and challenges with their recruitment process, with their hiring, with their retention processes. And actually, we're experts in that. That's what we are experts in. So we can come in and we can help them with that. Yes, we're going to, fill the roles that they've got. But actually, what we're going to help them to do is to improve their processes so that they get better people, and they get better people in a better way. And then that's going to enable the growth of their business, isn't it? So when you were just saying that about being a consultant, we talk a lot about being a management consultant that specializes in recruitment, because actually part of this isn't just, let me send you some CVs. It's okay, well, let's talk about this particular hiring challenge that you've got, or let's talk about your pipeline for the next 12 months. And then let's talk about your recruitment process and how it works and if it works and what could be better and what could we do to improve it? What could we do to save you time and save you money and improve your retention rates and all the other things that we can do? And if recruiters are sat there scratching their heads thinking, well, I don't know if I do that. Do you know what? You probably do. You're just not looking at it like that. So myself and James either train people, we train people on stuff, or we enable the growth of ambitious recruitment businesses through the training and coaching and mentoring of their staff. So it's just how it's how you perceive what you do and then how you get that out into the marketplace. And just my final point, I suppose, on this is that not all clients will get it either. Some clients, clients have been conditioned for many, many years now to believe that cost is the only thing that separates one recruiter from the other, because we're all the same and we just send CVs. So you're going to be going up against this wave of sort of conditioning that's coming back at you. But it's 100% doable.
Well, I think you have to educate your customers there. I mean, on this process of going to building, a long-term relationship, there's other things that you can do to start showing the client what you do. Sometimes it's bundling other things in, a bit of behavioral profiling, all part of the packaging that you put in, key competency assessment. You can bring in things which are showing the client again, or starting to separate out the value proposition, you coming away from the herd. But you do need to educate your customers so that they understand. And people focus on price, because they don't understand. They don't fully understand the value that your products or services provide. So when you're educating your clients, prospects, potential customers, people you're going to be working with, there are things that you can do, and this comes back down to that first impression thing. Why do we run the Retained Recruiter Show? And these type of webinars. It's because we're trying to educate people that we want to sell to and talk to, so they understand that that you can do things differently. So you've got to do that with your clients as well, because they are ignorant to some of the things that are out there. Joe and I know, we talk a lot about 20th century recruitment, because that's when recruitment was born as a service that was put out there, and it's a provision an identification of a CV into the marketplace, and it's fastest finger first. Who can get that CV over the line? Well, here we are in the 21st century. Let's talk about a 21st century process that utilizes multiple layers of scientific and objective assessment to help an employer make a more informed interviewing and therefore a better hiring decision.
Yeah.
And you start to bring that together. So you've got to educate the customer so they understand that, and you've got to innovate. You've got to, you got to innovate and show them that, recruit. Yeah, are you still recruiting just on the basis of a CV and asking a candidate a few questions at interview, or are you really probing into the depth of those? And if you start to look at some of those, and I go back over, some of the steps I've just spoken about in sort of, bullet terms. I said, understand your customers, differentiate your brand, that first impressions, quality over quantity, bundle things in, upsell, develop a strong relationship with your client, communicate your value proposition. You got to communicate it. It's not magic.
No.
Educate them and then continuously innovate. And if you do that, all of a sudden you're not like every other recruiter that's out there. You're no longer in the middle, you're at the front. You're at the leading edge of, and your clients will say, you're very different to most people I've spoken to. And you say, that's exactly why I am. Thank you very much. Because the next thing is when they come around to the same price, all of a sudden they now can see what they're buying, and they will pay a premium price because they perceive you as having a premium product or premium service. So that's where
we mentioned earlier on, this isn't about us, it's about them, so less of the me and I and more about the you. So if you are struggling to think, if you sat here listening to this and you're struggling to think, what is it that I could do that adds value to my clients? What would my clients find helpful and useful and beneficial? Ask them. Ask your existing clients, what else could we be doing to make our service better? Your clients, some of them will know, some of them will know some, and that might help you to start getting out there and differentiating your service, starting to just set your stall out in a very different way. Or of course you could call us and we can help you.
Yeah, indeed, which we always love to do. Hey, well done. So book a call with us, www.retainedcall.com. Joe, can you believe we've spent over 30 minutes whistling through that? I think it felt like 5 minutes. So I hope everybody listening out there, sort of picked up on some of those things. I did say get your paper and pen ready at the beginning. So some good things there. We'll probably put out a post as well, a couple of things on this. But if you do want to get in touch with us, please do. It's been a pleasure, speaking with you today, Joe. Good topic. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with who knows what. We'll keep you on the edge of your seat, looking out for that. Look out for some messages from us. But anything else to finish off on, Joe?
Yes, absolutely. If anybody wants to hear any more, I'm going to do a shameless plug for James's new masterclass. So it's a 5-part recorded masterclass on all of this stuff. Don't compete on price, win on value, differentiate your service, make your recruitment business stand out. It's a 5-part masterclass. It's completely free, which doesn't mean that it's low value. It just means that it's our gift to you. You're welcome. So get in touch with us if you'd like to take part. I think there's a limited amount.
Go onto our website and as soon as you land on our website, www.i-intro.com, and just wait a couple of seconds and it pops up a little message. So thanks for plugging that, Joe. I don't like to plug myself on that side of things. But please do have a look at that masterclass. Good stuff. Thanks very much, Joe. And thanks everybody for listening. Look forward to catching up with you again sometime.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.